My sister bound the dying fox to a contract and dumped the mediocre spirit snake on me. Little did we know this fox was the last descendant of the nine-tailed divine fox. His father drained my sister's heartblood to sever the beast-binding pact, erasing the fused contract mark completely. Yet that unremarkable spirit snake I inherited soon triggered an ancient seal and transformed into a dragon, after rebirth. My elder sister snatched the ailing spirit snake and swiftly completed the contract, declaring arrogantly, "Little sister, this lifetime it's your turn to experience having your essence drained dry. This true dragon belongs to me in this life," I agreed with a beaming smile. Little does my sister know, it was all my doing that this useless snake could trigger the ancient seal and transform into a true dragon. "Father, I want this spirit snake." My sister's eyes gleamed with golden light as she stared intensely at the sickly brown spirit snake in the cage, her expression visibly excited. Our father found it strange. My sister had always been superficial, insisting on choosing only the most beautiful things. That severely injured white fox by the side should have been my sister's first choice for a spirit beast, yet to my surprise, she picked a spirit snake curled up like a turd. Watching her gleefully open the cage, I couldn't help but smirk. Seems my sister has been reborn too, all right, in her past life. Everyone assumed the white fox was just an ordinary fox with a bit of spiritual power, nothing special about its origins. After all, foxes are a dime a dozen, breeding like rabbits. A true white fox of noble lineage would reign supreme, protected by mighty guardians, never reduced to being a wounded contract beast. Only when the divine fox clan threatened to raise the imperial palace did they realize this fox was the last descendant of the nine-tailed divine fox. In a fit of rage, his father drained his sister's heartblood to break the beast-slave contract, erasing the fused sigil at the cost of her life. With her dying breath, my sister glared at the majestic spirit serpent by my side, now transformed into a true dragon, her eyes brimming with resentment and bitter regret. "You'd truly form a pact with this spirit serpent?" The king voiced his skepticism. The elder sister nodded eagerly, pricking her fingertip without hesitation to let blood drip onto the contract before pressing it against the spirit serpent. Instantly, the contract erupted in radiant light. Twin beams of crimson and amber light swiftly merged into the sister and serpent's bodies. The crimson glow signified the master's seal, while the amber marked the beast's bond. So my sister's contract was actually an unequal beast enslavement pact. I watched as the spirit serpent's slit pupils dilated instantly, radiating icy malice. As expected, cold-blooded creatures can never be warmed by kindness. After successfully sealing the contract, my sister approached me with haughty arrogance. "Little sister, this divine dragon belongs to me for life. This lifetime, it's your turn to experience having your heart's essence drained dry." Meeting her expectant yet venomous gaze, I nearly burst out laughing. What a damn joke. This so-called divine dragon is just a worthless piece of trash snake. Had it not been for me in our past life, how could he have ever broken the ancient seal? Pity that silver-tongued serpent played his part too well. In the end, I fell by his hand. As for this white fox, my gaze fell upon the snow-furred fox trapped within the iron cage. I noticed him staring at me too, who knows for how long. I let out a faint sigh. I told him not to come find me, yet he never listens. Someone of his stature, not only wounded but also humiliated as a bound beast. Seeing me staring blankly at the white fox, my elder sister sneered and urged, "Little sister, this white fox was wounded and captured with great difficulty by father's men. I'm yielding it to you. Don't be ungrateful." The king frowned, his gaze turning sharp. "Inger, form the contract now, or I'll give it to Crystal instead." Crystal, the daughter of father's favorite concubine consort Lavinia, is a spoiled and ruthless brat. My gaze shifted to mother seated beside father, just as expected. Her brows knitted in displeasure the moment she heard about gifting the white fox to Crystal, shooting me an accusatory glare. "Fine then, since I can't set the fox free, it's better to form a contract with me than let that vicious Crystal get her hands on him." What's more, in his previous life, the nine-tailed divine fox, White Fox's father, in his fury not only drained my sister's heartblood to break the contract seal and raze the imperial palace to the ground, but also forced my father to cede territory as reparations, costing our kingdom a third of its lands. Father still doesn't know the truth. If he discovers White Fox is the nine-tailed divine fox's sole heir, given his ruthless nature, he'd undoubtedly have the fox killed and its ashes scattered, erasing its existence as if it never was. With these thoughts, I could only sigh and produce the contract, letting a drop of blood fall onto the parchment before sliding it toward White Fox's cage. The white fox glanced at me, splayed its diamond-shaped paw, and pressed a petal-like imprint onto the document. Twin golden auras flowed into me and the white fox, sealing our pact. "You're still so kind-hearted, little sister, using an equal covenant. Aren't you afraid your spirit beast might disobey?" "Disobey? Any spirit beast bound to me shall be treated with the courtesy due to a friend." My sister let out a derisive snort, clearly unimpressed. I glanced at the spirit serpent coiled around her wrist, lost in thought. In my past life, I'd also formed an equal contract with this serpent, only to be betrayed and killed by its lingering resentment. Such a treacherous spirit serpent. I wonder if my sister can truly tame it. Forget it. Why should I bother with this? Though we share the same mother, my elder sister has always looked down on me since childhood. All because I didn't inherit our queen mother's beauty. Not only am I plain looking, but I also bear a strange mark on my right cheek. As for her, she outshines even our mother's legendary beauty, reigning as Princess Felicity, the undisputed fairest in the imperial capital. I brought the white fox back to my Everjoy palace. The moment we stepped inside, the white fox couldn't wait to speak. Lyra, why are you ignoring me? Without a word, I walked straight into the refining room and began rummaging through the bottles and jars on the shelves. The silver bracelet on my wrist pulsed with faint, rippling light. This spirit ring was his gift to me, allowing us to stay connected. Ever since I accidentally saved him that year, he slipped this spirit ring onto my hand. All these years, he kept trying to locate me through the ring, but I never responded to his calls. In my past life, when my sister contracted him as her spirit beast, I learned the white fox had abandoned his father's elite guards to search for me, only to be ambushed and captured by my father's shadow commander. In the end, I couldn't bear to see his noble status degraded into a spiritual beast's contract. I leaked the information to his cousin Blood Fox, who eventually rescued him. I kept stirring the medicine jar in my hands, acutely aware of his burning gaze fixed upon me, holding the ointment-like mixture over the candle flame to warm it. I glanced down at him. His chest was sunken, left leg twisted unnaturally, while a gaping wound on his right leg continued bleeding profusely. That's a nasty wound. No wonder you couldn't escape. I furrowed my brow. Alaric, shift back to human form. Let me treat your wounds. He shook his head weakly, yet with determination in his voice. No need. I've got this. Seems he didn't want me to see him in such a sorry state. Fine then. I tossed him a small pill with a faint medicinal aroma. Take this first. Watching him catch it with his mouth, I turned and walked away. Half an incense stick's time later, his deep voice came through, noticeably stronger. Lyra, get in here now. When I saw him again, he had transformed into an androgynous human form of breathtaking beauty. I couldn't help but lower my head, feeling somewhat ashamed. We remained silent, not speaking a word. In the end, I was the first to break the silence. Alaric, don't be like this. I just happened to save you that time. Indeed, it was merely a coincidence. That day, I sneaked out of the palace and climbed the snow-covered Yenshan mountain in search of the treasure-hunting mice rumored to frequent the area, hoping they'd lead me to the elusive dragon spirit blossom I'd long desired. My wandering master's journal mentioned that when combined with 500-year-old blood Ganoderma and 300-year-old cloud lotus stamen, the dragon spirit blossom could be made into an ointment. Taking just a pea-sized portion daily for a month would transform ordinary looks into striking beauty. To put it bluntly, I just wanted to become as beautiful as the Queen Mother. Little did I know, I stumbled upon Alaric, covered in blood and nearly frozen solid. Just as I was about to bury him out of kindness, his eyes suddenly snapped open, their chill sharper than the swirling blizzard, when he saw me holding a warm cloak to cover him. He barely managed to gasp 2 words before collapsing unconscious. Save me, Lyra. Maybe you saved me by chance, but I've chosen you. His gaze lingered, brimming with tenderness. My heart raced as I hastily blurted out those words and fled. You, just focus on recovering first. I'll find a way to dissolve our contract later. We've entered into an equal beast-binding pact, which can be easily dissolved with mutual consent. But in our past life, my sister had forged an unequal beast contract with Alaric. When his father, the 9-tailed divine fox, besieged the imperial palace, my father and sister watched helplessly as the royal grounds neared total destruction, with hundreds of thousands of elite troops drowning in catastrophic tsunamis. My father had no choice but to painfully sacrifice my sister to break the contract, watching as the 9-tailed fox slowly drained her lifeblood. Her agonized screams echoed through the palace halls until she withered into a white-haired crone, her essence completely drained. Only after witnessing the fox dissolve her bond with Alaric did she finally perish, her eyes filled with bitter resentment. For days on end, I had the prepared medicine delivered to him without visiting Alaric in person. It wasn't until the Queen Mother summoned me that I finally stepped beyond the palace gates. The moment I exited the courtyard, I saw Alaric practicing martial arts, his white robes fluttering gracefully, just like every day after his recovery in our previous life. When he'd regained his human form, clad in flowing white robes, he wielded the crimson glowing artifact with effortless grace, so mesmerizing. My heart raced as warmth spread across my cheeks. Alaric was the most handsome man I'd ever seen, just as my sister was the most beautiful woman. My face fell as I realized the vast gulf between us. fingers unconsciously tracing the strange mark on my cheek. How could I ever be worthy of Alaric? What does it matter if my heart's already his? He's the sole heir of the nine-tailed divine fox lineage, born to nobility and destined for the throne, and I'm just a little princess, an unattractive and unfavored one at that. Arriving at the Empress Dowager's sea-neighing palace, I found the Emperor and my elder sister already present. The Emperor gestured for me to sit, then addressed both my sister and me. In 10 days, the once every 5 years Elysium will open. You shall enter with your contracted spirit beasts to seek mystical treasures for their evolution, while also tempering your spiritual bodies to greater strength. The Queen Mother handed each of us a silver glowing token. These are your passes to Elysium. Guard them well, lose them, and you'll be trapped there forever. My sister eagerly reached for the token, her face alight with excitement. Splendid, Father. Elysium must contain the primordial essence to awaken the ancient seals, then my spirit serpent could. My sister abruptly covered her mouth mid-sentence. I understood. She feared our royal parents might discover she'd been reborn. Father King frowned, his expression turning grave. Felicity, since Elysium's emergence, no living soul has witnessed a spiritual marrow capable of awakening the ancient seals. These remain artifacts of legend. Moreover, this divine treasure must be guarded by the king of wild beasts. Felicity must proceed with utmost caution. My elder sister scoffed at this, unable to suppress a smug smile. Fear not, Father, I shall claim this divine treasure without fail. The king shook his head helplessly, dismissing his daughter's words as youthful arrogance, but I knew perfectly well my sister's certainty stemmed from our past life. When the ancient seals on the spirit serpent began weakening after I brought it into Elysium, this led her to conclude that Elysium must contain spiritual treasures like the soul marrow. She was right. Elysium did indeed house such a rare wonder as the soul marrow. I outwitted the Beast King in 300 rounds of battle, exerting every ounce of strength to finally claim the soul marrow, to preserve every ounce of the spirit marrow's essence. I immediately shoved it into the serpent's gaping maw the moment I plucked it, yet nothing happened, not the slightest tremor from the ancient seals, a legendary spiritual treasure wasted for nothing. As for why the serpent's primordial seals began weakening after leaving Elysium, that's another story entirely. Stepping out of the Empress Dowager's sea-neighing palace, my sister's smile carried hidden implications. Little sister, you'll be bringing the white fox into Elysium, won't you? Beneath her breathtaking beauty lurked venomous cunning, a dagger concealed in silk. A moment's reflection revealed what she was truly anticipating. So my dear sister has been wishing for my death all along. As the saying goes, why should brothers torment each other when they spring from the same root? Yet my sister, unsatisfied with being the sole favorite, wants me dead and gone before my time. In our past life, it was my sister who led Alaric into Elysium. When they encountered the savage Yuan beast, she pushed Alaric forward to block the soul-devouring wave. The damage to his spirit activated the nine-tailed fox's soul-tracking spell, revealing his whereabouts. After I relayed the message again, my sister met her end, drained of her lifeblood, so she wanted to see me go through all this too. I curled my lips and played along with her script. Sister, Father King said we must help our contracted spirit beasts advance. I'll definitely be taking my white fox into Elysium. Hearing this, my sister's smile grew even more radiant. I chuckled along. Sister, you'd better be careful taking that puny spirit snake in there. She snorted disdainfully and shot me a glare. Save your concern, little sister. My spirit snake will evolve into a true dragon. It's leagues above your measly white fox. You should worry about yourself. As if she couldn't stand another moment with me, my sister turned and walked away without a word. Watching her retreating figure, I thought bitterly we share the same mother, yet she's always been the prettier one, the favored child in every way. Why does this golden girl, this princess among mortals, constantly bully her own sister and even wish me dead? Looking back on our childhood together, I can't recall ever wronging her. I shook my head and retreated to my Everjoy palace. Though reluctant to face Alaric, I still approached him about entering Elysium in 10 days. His faint smile, unbearably tender, sent my heart into disarray. To avoid Alaric, I spent the 10 days before entering Elysium cultivating spiritual energy in seclusion. I didn't emerge from the secret chamber until Elysium was about to open. Stepping outside, I saw Alaric standing there with slightly damp hair, tiny dewdrops glistening upon closer inspection. I sighed softly, wondering how long he'd been waiting here. Wordlessly offering him a silk handkerchief, I was met with his pitiful peach blossom eyes. Looks like you want me to help wipe it directly. As I lowered my gaze to withdraw my hand, he swiftly snatched the silk handkerchief away. Drying his hair while casting a somewhat resentful glance at me, we arrived at the palace gates in silence, where the king and queen were admonishing my sister to prioritize caution over recklessness in all matters. Don't fret if your spirit beast doesn't advance during this tempering. You can always collect rare treasures later to achieve the breakthrough. My sister was still coiling that damn snake around her hand. Oh, The so-called divine serpent, just like in my past life. It still couldn't take human form. When the king and queen saw me emerge, they merely cautioned me to be careful, assigning Alaric as my guard. Not a single word about the sacred treasure, not even a mention of my coming-of-age ceremony today. Meeting my sister's haughty, challenging gaze head-on, I mounted my horse and rode out with my guard detail. Out of the corner of my I caught my sister staring at Alaric beside me with unconcealed awe and infatuation. Indeed, in our past life, she'd never witnessed Alaric's breathtaking beauty, only his white fox form before his human transformation. Soon, she spurred her horse forward, her eyes burning with undisguised jealousy and resentment. Her gaze flickered between Alaric and me as if I were already a corpse. She must be fantasizing about the moment my heart's essence gets drained. Within an hour, we arrived at Elysium, where divine light illuminated half the sky. Such a grand event naturally drew crowds with their spirit beasts waiting before Elysium's gates. Most were those without entry tokens, lingering outside hoping to scavenge leftovers. Without a token, Alaric could only enter Elysium through physical contact during teleportation. I grasped his hand while pressing my token against the abyss-like spring before Elysium. In an instant, we were randomly transported to a woodland clearing within Elysium. Emerald leaves shimmered around us as ethereal energy pulsed through the air, compelling deep breaths that purged worldly heaviness from our lungs. No wonder this is the ancient Elysium. The spiritual energy here is 10 times denser than the outside world. Lyra, Elysium was already perilous enough. Now that it's open, countless powerful figures have entered. We must stay vigilant. Alaric gripped my hand tightly. I glanced at his unwillingness to let go. I know. I'll be careful. Just let go first. Alaric reluctantly released his grip when he saw he couldn't win the argument. He kept muttering under his breath, "Elysium's terrain is treacherous. What appear to be safe zones often hide unseen dangers. Stay close to me, I'll make sure you get out of Elysium safely." He raised the spirit ring in his hand high. "Let's make this clear. If we get separated, you must tell me immediately so I can activate tracking to find you." I murmured a soft in agreement. Drawing from memories of my past life, I guided Alaric through Elysium to gather spiritual treasures. After finding the priceless Kirin fruit, I overheard a man and woman conversing in the swamp thicket. "Junior sister, have you heard? Lyriel, the successor to the mystic spirit sex leadership, has also entered Elysium." The woman gasped in surprise. "What? She's here too?" "She's the most formidable talent among all the sect's younger generation, of course. How else could she be the most legendary figure in the cultivation world with the rarest and most powerful spiritual roots? They say she's already reached the early stage of nascent soul separation, while Alaric, the divine fox prince she fancies, just entered the initial nascent soul realm, a full 2 tiers behind. I couldn't help but glance at Alaric standing nearby. His cheeks flushed slightly as he rubbed his nose in embarrassment. The so-called successor to the mystic spirit sex leadership, Lyriel, is a strikingly beautiful woman, my cousin who's about the same age as my sister and 2 years older than me. Honestly though, how did she manage to improve her skills so rapidly? I let out a soft sigh. Seeing my sigh, Alaric quickly tried to comfort me. "Don't be upset, Lyra, you'll reach the early nascent soul stage soon enough. We're in Elysium now. We're bound to find rare spiritual treasures that'll give you a major boost. Besides, you've got remarkable talent." He suddenly trailed off mid-sentence. I gave him a puzzled glance but didn't dwell on it. "I just think she must have sacrificed more than others to become the leader of the mystic spirit sect. Her spiritual root is exceptionally rare, requiring more potent treasures and refinement. She's undoubtedly endured tremendous hardships." Alaric fell silent briefly before defending me anyway. "Don't you resent her for stealing your Kaleida's treasure last time? Had you refined it, you'd likely be at the early nascent soul stage by now." I shook my head in denial. "No, I was stuck at the bottleneck of the early nascent soul stage back then. Refining the Kaleidas would have been wasteful. It made more sense to let her have it. I've always had this gut feeling that my cousin is secretly working on something monumental. Something nobody knows about. We used to play together all the time as kids. I knew her well. She's always been the free-spirited type, even bordering on being a bit of a slacker. No one knew why she suddenly became so obsessed with cultivation, desperately striving to claim the position of mystic spirit sex leader. Though her spiritual roots were rare, her refinement progress advanced at least 3 times faster than ordinary cultivators, even among peers of the same cultivation level. None could match her overwhelming strength. Is this relentless effort just to prove herself worthy of Alaric, the divine fox crown prince? Not wanting this trip to Elysium to be in vain, I carefully avoided the wild beasts while safely gathering as many spirit treasures as possible. Just as Alaric and I, laden with our bountiful finds, wandered near the spirit immortal pool, we spotted my sister tattling on us. "Lyriel, did you know my little sister Lyra has formed a spirit beast contract with Alaric, the divine fox prince? The one she addressed so casually was actually her elder cousin Lyriel, though only by 3 months. As the daughter of the queen's elder sister, Lyriel possessed striking beauty that matched her noble lineage. Clad in crimson robes that accentuated her snow-white complexion, she exuded an air of untamed elegance. The distinctive dark moon crest between her brows marked her as the Sheniying sect's second highest-ranking member, surpassed only by the sect master. Her frosty demeanor at this moment made others hesitate to approach. A flicker of surprise crossed her features when she noticed me. My sister stood nearby watching me with a smirk, clearly anticipating drama while taunting me. I warned my sister not to form a contract with that mysterious white fox of unknown origin, but she wouldn't listen. After a deliberate pause, she poured more fuel on the fire. Only later did I discover that White Fox was actually the divine fox prince, the very Alaric you're infatuated with. Her eyes darted playfully toward the handsome Alaric standing beside me. That's why the moment I stepped into Elysium, I couldn't wait to tell you. Her gaze flickered between Lyriel, me, and Alaric as she subtly retreated 2 steps. I scanned our surroundings and found no unwanted bystanders nearby. If word got out that Prince Alaric of the Divine Fox had become a contracted spirit beast, it would cause an absolute uproar. Look at our group, every one of us holds considerable status. There's the Divine Fox Prince, the first princess in Capital's reigning beauty, the obscure second princess, and the heir apparent to the mystic spirit sect. Any one of us, except me, could fuel palace gossip for weeks. And now we're all inexplicably intertwined. This juicy gossip could fuel conversations from New Year's to New Year's Eve. I let out a cold laugh, finally seeing the truth. I thought my sister merely wanted to watch me die from drained heart blood, but now I see she meant to stir conflict between Lyriel and me first, then enjoy my demise. My derisive snort cut through Lyriel's gaze toward Alaric, making her shoot a sideways glance at our spectating sister. Speak up, Felicity. What do you desire? Hearing this, my sister perked up immediately. I've heard Elysium holds rare spirit treasures like soul marrow. Would you help me obtain this relic to evolve my contracted spirit beast? Is she trying to recruit Lyriel as an ally against me? Lyriel observed her beaming face full of excitement and anticipation, then glanced at the spirit serpent coiled around her hand. True spirit treasures do exist, but your serpent's potential is rather mediocre. Don't waste such precious spirit marrow on an ordinary creature. As the heir apparent of the mystic spirit sect, Lyriel instantly recognized the serpent's lackluster spiritual roots and limited aptitude. Her sister retorted with visible defiance, "Impossible, my spirit serpent has exceptional gifts, he'll definitely awaken the ancient seal and evolve into a true." She abruptly cut herself off, eyes flashing with wariness. As if terrified someone might steal her serpent after learning it could transform into a celestial dragon, I nearly laughed aloud. As the heir to the mystic dawn sect's leadership, what legendary beast haven't I seen? Why would I covet her pathetic snake? Lyriel stared at her sister with undisguised mockery. I can reveal the location of spirit marrow within Elysium. Spirit marrow is the supreme spiritual treasure that accelerates beast evolution, activates ancient hidden seals, and ranks highest among mystical artifacts. In my past life, I went through hell slaying the Abyssal Beast King to obtain this spirit marrow for my serpent, only for that useless reptile to show zero reaction, wasting such a peerless treasure. For reasons unknown, Lyriel, who'd always scorned playing with her sister, leaned down and whispered the spirit marrow's growing location to her. I remember clearly that the supreme spiritual treasure marrow is guarded by the Beast King. My beautiful elder sister has been nurtured with spiritual treasures since childhood, yet she's barely reached the early nascent soul stage. How could she possibly escape the Beast King's attack? She'd be lucky to even flee successfully. My sister froze momentarily, her expression turning stiff. Knowing her character all too well, I suspected she wanted Lyriel to take her there and help retrieve the spiritual marrow for her. She's always been like this, putting on the elegant airs of a noble princess while actually being a two-faced schemer. The elder sister pressed her lips together, swallowing her anger as she crumpled the silk handkerchief into a wrinkled mess. Many covet the essence of a supreme spiritual treasure. If you don't hurry, it'll be too late. Lyriel's words served as the elder sister's cue to leave. My sister clenched her fists in frustration, then suddenly smirked at me and Alaric. Lyriel, my sister is your sister too. Since she dared to contract the Divine Fox Prince as her spirit beast, she clearly has no respect for you. As for how to deal with her, do as you please in this Elysium. I'll pretend I know nothing about it. Oh sister, dear sister, I've lived in your shadow since childhood. Are you really so eager to see me dead? My gaze lingered on my blood sister with mixed emotions. Lyriel didn't even glance her way. The sister left in a huff, stomping her feet in frustration. Only after the crowd dispersed did Lyriel turn her attention to the silent Alaric. Lord Divine Fox has been searching everywhere for you. It's time you returned. Lyriel's gaze at Alaric held unspoken complexity, concern, melancholy, sorrow, and something deeper still, an emotion too profound to name. It suddenly came back to me, that time in our past life when she recklessly stormed into the palace, ready to harm my sister to save Alaric. Even then, I found it strange. The way she looked at Alaric back then held more incomprehensible complexity than unconcealed affection. Lyra, wait here, I need to speak with her. With a slight nod from me, Alaric was already flying toward Lyriel, raising his hand to cast a private barrier around them. My chest tightened strangely. Though I couldn't hear their words, I kept watching nonetheless. The barrier dissolved swiftly, carrying Lyriel's murmured words from afar. You must keep this strictly confidential. Alaric grunted in agreement. Do they have some secret? Ever since meeting Lyriel, I've had this strange feeling. It's like they're hiding something from me. Alaric keeps glancing at me with that hesitant look, like he wants to say something but holds back. This irritated me slightly, my foot instinctively kicking away a pebble on the ground. In an instant, the surroundings blurred into indistinct shapes. When my eyes refocused, an intricately carved antique box came into clear view. A carved box. I quickly glanced around, finding myself in an ethereal space brimming with celestial mist. On the simple table before me sat an exquisitely carved antique box. Impossible to miss, the box's understated yet elegant patterns shimmered with faint silver glimmers. Upon closer inspection, the silver light gradually coalesced into flowing, graceful script. Chosen one, please select your destined opportunity. Choose. Isn't there just a single box here? As I was wondering how to choose, the box slowly began to open. A brilliant silver light erupted instantly. Yet it didn't dazzle the eyes. Instead, it felt like cleansing them, leaving vision clearer and more luminous. The contents of the box levitated midair, revealing 3 distinct treasures. To the left hovered eternity, a supreme spiritual artifact recorded only in ancient texts, wielding heaven-defying power to transcend the tribulation phase and ascend to the great perfection stage. This was an existence beyond the wildest dreams of cultivators. In the center lay an ornate sword wreathed in auspicious clouds, though appearing ordinary at first glance. The blade shimmered with faint dragon silhouettes at its tip, occasionally resonating with draconic hums. Clearly no mundane weapon. To the right rested an aged, slightly tattered parchment scroll curled upon itself. Just as I wondered what new marvel this might be, the scroll unfurled at both ends. The dense clusters of symbols, row upon row, triggered a strange sense of déjà vu. I'd never seen such bizarre symbols before. My brain suddenly issued an urgent command. Choose it, pick that one. Following my instinct, I reached up to grab it, but the parchment transformed into a golden light that vanished between my brows. A torrent of visions flooded my mind as the strange mark on my face began burning with waves of heat. Beasts of the wild, rivers and mountains, sects in the wilderness, imperial cities, celestial realms, scenes rushed past in chaotic succession, somehow connected to me, yet utterly alien. For I beheld my ancient self, that face so peerless in all the world. Just as I questioned whether this altered version could still be me, the vision abruptly vanished. The parchment had transformed into a lacewing, whispering that fate would unveil the latter half in due time. As I touched the strangely searing mark on my face, half awake, my eyes opened to find myself at the gates of Elysium. Alaric paced restlessly in his white robes, his strikingly handsome face etched with anxiety and concern. What's going on? I'd been gone for barely 15 minutes. How did Alaric already emerge from Elysium? The moment Alaric spotted me, he came rushing over. He grasped my hand tightly, his face beaming with joy. Lyra, are you all right? I glanced at my small hand engulfed in his large one and quickly pulled away. His eyes were slightly reddened, his voice husky with emotion. Do you have any idea, when you vanished suddenly, I went crazy searching everywhere for you. Even the spirit rings tracking showed nothing. Until the very last moment of Elysium's 10-day limit, I was torn between staying forever to find you. After coming out, I waited here for 7 days. I thought you. I stared at him wide-eyed. You're saying I was gone for 17 days. How is this possible? I was only gone for a moment. Yes, today is the 17th day. Elysium's opening ended 7 days ago. My God. Did I enter some secret space where time flows differently when Alaric and I returned to the palace? I learned that after Elysium's closure, my sister had been gravely injured and was rescued by the royal guards stationed at the entrance. She'd gone searching for the supreme spiritual treasure, the soul marrow, but within mere moments was attacked by the Beast King. Despite assistance from 2 highly skilled shadow guards, she ultimately coughed up blood and lost consciousness. Not surprising at all. Did she really think the Beast King guarding such a treasure would be easy prey? I curled my lip in a derisive sneer. My sister is truly naive, bound by blood ties. I still went to her chambers, seeing her lying there frail, with that hideous scar running from her brow to the bridge of her once beautiful nose. I froze. How could someone so vain bear such disfigurement? Even if we could find a spiritual treasure to cure it, it would still take considerable time. My sister started screaming like a madwoman the moment she saw me. How are you still alive? You should have died from having your heart's essence drained. How can you still be breathing? How dare you survive? In my past life, I contracted with a white fox only to have my heart's essence drained by the nine-tailed divine fox, yet here you stand unharmed. In this life, I chose the spirit serpent, to help it break the ancient seal and ascend as a true dragon. I had my face mauled by the beast king guarding the sacred treasure. I exhausted every magical artifact I possessed. Nearly lost my life retrieving the spirit marrow for it to consume, so why hasn't it transformed? It became a true dragon in its previous incarnation. I saw it with my own eyes. My sister's agitation made the scar on her face writhe like a centipede. Disgusting. Sister, didn't Cousin Lyriel warn you long ago that the spirit snake you contracted is utterly useless? Even consuming spirit marrow won't help it. But you completely ignored her and still got yourself gravely injured for its sake. How is this my fault? My eyes swept across this bedchamber, more opulent than even the Empress Dowager's palace of compassion. As I shook my head in silent disbelief, my sister seemed to have a sudden realization, glaring at me with venom as she spat. Lyra, have you been reborn too? If that spirit serpent was so useless, how did it become a true dragon in its past life? My sister looked like she wanted to strangle me on the spot. Truth be told, I only just found out myself. I'm the reincarnation of an ancient celestial being, which is why I possess the power in my past life to help the spirit serpent trigger the primordial seal. With a mocking smirk, I shrugged at my sister whose eyes burned with venomous hatred. I did pluck the spiritual marrow for him in my previous incarnation, but the worthless fool squandered that priceless divine treasure. Eventually, I had to resort to alternative methods to make him activate the ancient seal. Leaning slightly forward, I whispered, "But I won't tell you." Just as I turned to leave in high spirits, a barrier descended, trapping me in place. Ha ha! My sister's laughter was shrill and triumphant. Little sister, within this barrier, your cultivation can only be suppressed. The spirit serpent said your heart's essence blood can activate his ancient seal. That must be why he ascended as a true dragon in his past life. No, I turned to see my sister's venomous glare, as if she wished me dead on the spot. I'm most curious to see just how refined and pure your heart's essence blood can become. The words were ground out between her clenched teeth. A man in dark robes emerged from the shadows. It was the spirit serpent. His frail body, nourished by the supreme spiritual essence, had finally gained the power to take human form. His gloomy, ice-cold eyes boring to me, every word dripping with frost. Lyra, though you didn't choose me in this life, you've awakened my ancient sealed bloodline. He inched closer, his chilling aura radiating unbearable discomfort. I know full well your deep connection to the ancient seals. That crimson gold essence refined within your heart can help me break the seals and ascend as a true dragon. Did you ever imagine, even if you didn't choose me in this life, I'd still take your essence to fulfill my desires? His androgynous face loomed larger before my eyes, yet I remained paralyzed within the barrier's grasp. In that moment, I realized he too had been reborn. Helplessly, I watched as he drew a gleaming dagger and thrust it toward my heart. At that very moment, the strange mark on my face burned hot. A surge of immense spiritual energy sent the serpent flying, smashing it against a distant stone pillar. It spat blood, its once graceful body instantly shrinking into a lifeless little snake. My sister struggled to her feet. Impossible. How could you break a barrier that requires at least late-stage nascent soul cultivation to escape? To be honest, I didn't know either. My blank expression cut my sister deep, her contorted face making the scars appear even more grotesque. Your face, how could you? My sister shrieked hysterically, claws outstretched as she lunged to tear my face apart. My face, I casually conjured a water mirror. Reflected on its surface was that peerless face I'd seen. Could that truly be me? I meant to study it carefully, but my sister's shrieking curses ruined the moment, ignoring the deranged woman. I cast a paralysis spell on her before turning to the coiled spirit serpent, my lips curling into a grin. Perfect, you've reincarnated too. Let's settle our unfinished business from the past life. Pressing the serpent's head with my toe, memories of our previous incarnation flooded back. Last lifetime, after binding you as my spirit beast, I dedicated myself to strengthening you. I even sacrificed one of my 2 precious heart blood drops to help you ascend to a true dragon. Yet you stole my last remaining drop, surpassing even dragonhood to become a celestial WYRM. I sneered at the spirit serpent's violently trembling body. Now you must be itching to devour me whole and ascend as the profound dragon immortal emperor. Picking up the dagger from the ground, I began flaying its scales methodically. It howled in agony, writhing and begging for mercy between choked sobs. I feel no shred of mercy for him now. His cruelty toward me in our past life was far more vicious. After mere minutes, he begged me for a quick death with his dying breath. I refused. He shall know the agony of death by 1,000 cuts. After another hour passed, his breathing ceased entirely. The sister, barely recovered from the paralysis spell, rose from the bed only to cough up blood and collapse onto the floor. The spirit beast contract mark between them faded away, worsening the sister's already critical injuries. Faintly, her labored breathing could be heard, thin as a mosquito's whine. You, all of you, deserve to die, deserve to die. Just who exactly deserves to die? 2 lifetimes of bitter fate, all the vicious tricks you've played on me since childhood. It's time to settle this debt once and for all. I pulled a small porcelain vial from my pouch and darted forward, pouring its contents down her throat. Almost instantly, my sister's spiritual energy surged visibly as her wounds began healing into scabs, all except the face she prized most. Sister, it's time to end this cursed bond, with your power restored to 80%. I'll face you at 60, no artifacts. Her glare burned into me as she ripped off her gemstone necklace, plucking out a blue pellet to swallow. Is that you, Melikar? Do you hate me that much, sister? Enough to drain tenfold spiritual power and shatter your own meridians? Enough to withhold this even against the Beast King in Elysium, only to unleash it upon me now? Very well. The moment I raised my hand to erect a barrier, an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy came crashing toward me in my sister's ambush. Sister, you asked for this, die. With no way to dodge, I braced myself and shut my eyes, ready to endure the blow. The spiritual energy wave ravaged every inch of my body, leaving me weak as mud and on the verge of collapse. A bone-chilling cold surged toward my face, before I could raise a hand to block it. The strange mark on my right cheek burned white-hot and erupted in searing flames. Just as my sister's scream faded into nothingness, the stench of charred flesh filled the air as I opened my eyes. Her limbs had already turned to ashes, leaving only half a torso slumped on the ground. Perhaps it's for the best. Stay confined in the palace this lifetime and never emerge again. I shot her an icy glance before turning away. After regaining some spiritual energy from the elixir, I glided silently down a palace corridor and overheard patrolling guards whispering, "Hey, did you hear? Elysium was supposed to vanish after closing, but it's still lingering within Henyuan Mountain. What's even stranger is that a bottomless black rift has appeared at the Ryuan Spring, the original entrance. It's been sucking in any living creature that wanders within 5 miles. Do you think Elysium might disappear again like it did 2,000 years ago? No way. If that happens, we'll lose our chance to explore Elysium for treasures and tempering. That would be such a shame. A bottomless black rift appears in Elysium. Could this be related to the memories from that parchment scroll? As the sound faded into the distance, I swiftly returned to the palace. The moment I passed through the palace gates, I saw Alaric waiting for me. Lyra, are you all right? Before he could finish speaking, his almond-shaped eyes widened abruptly. You, Lyra, is that really you? I touched my face as a wave of dizziness washed over me. It's me. I'm fine. I made my way back to my bedchamber. My head suddenly grew heavy, and I collapsed onto the bed, losing consciousness instantly. When I awoke the next morning, the latter half of the parchment had revealed all the backstory to me through dreams. Slowly opening my eyes, I gazed at the intricate carvings of the canopy bed, finally understanding why my cousin had been training so diligently. So it was, I am the ancient immortal sovereign Astrea. To repair the spiritual energy layer damaged by foreign invaders, I exhausted my divine power to establish Elysium, preventing further incursions when the spiritual energy becomes depleted. Leaving only a wisp of my consciousness within Elysium, I enabled it to operate autonomously and cultivate celestial treasures, maintaining the delicate balance of our cultivation realm. In recognition, the heavenly Tao bestowed upon me the blessing of perpetual reincarnation, allowing me to accumulate celestial merits until attaining the supreme position, sharing governance of the cultivation realm with the heavenly Tao itself. The heavenly Tao then devised an alternative plan, completing the condensation and replenishment of the spiritual energy layer within 2 millennia. These terms represent the agreement reached between me and the heavenly Tao. Thus, on each anniversary of my coming-of-age ceremony, fate would awaken my ancient memories to ensure I could continually maintain the cultivation realm before Elysium's last wisp of spiritual consciousness faded. Each reincarnation should have continued this cycle, yet unexpectedly in my previous life, just as we were about to fulfill the 1,000-year pact, my cousin Lyriel accidentally stumbled upon the parchment scroll before the heavenly Tao could awaken me to break the seal. The encounter triggered her spiritual power to surge violently to the great perfection stage, causing her to explode and perish. So, she's also been reborn in this life. I jumped out of bed to confront Alaric, only to find him already standing guard outside my door. Alaric, tell me now, has my cousin also been reborn? Alaric met my gaze and gave a firm nod, holding my hand. He recounted the origins of my bond with cousin Lyriel, before taking human form in her previous life. My cousin Lyriel was but an unremarkable purple spirit herb. In the distant primordial era, this struggling spirit herb, still devoid of consciousness, was caught in the crossfire of immortal battles, its stem severed completely. I happened upon the wounded plant and revived it with a single drop of celestial dew. Thus awakened, she gradually developed sentience and dedicated herself to achieving human form. After nearly a millennium of cultivation, she finally succeeded in her past life and became my cousin. Tragically, her newfound power spiraled beyond control, causing a fatal spiritual explosion that shattered her ultimate dream. Her profound obsession later granted her rebirth, planning to spare me from the cycle of reincarnation by transforming herself into the spiritual source of Elysium to sustain the cultivation realm. She said she wanted your happiness, choosing to replace your fragmented spirit so you'd never again endure the torment of endless rebirths. Her devoted cultivation was solely to reach Great Ascension's late stage. Only then could she transmute her being into Elysium's spiritual wellspring. There was no other way. Alaric met my gaze as he carefully spoke the words that followed. Do you realize that by becoming the spiritual source of Elysium, she'll be trapped there for eternity, never to reincarnate? Only after seeing my nod did he continue. Truth is, Lyriel has reached mid-stage Mahayana cultivation. In 3 days, after refining the supreme spiritual artifact seal of fragrance from Elysium to advance to late stage, she'll transform into the spiritual source to seal the rift and restore balance. Though I promised her not to tell you, I couldn't let you live with regrets, not when it concerns your ancient bond. I never realized my cousin was suppressing her cultivation level, making everyone believe she was only at the early nascent soul stage. She must have done this to keep me from discovering her plans. Cousin, leaving Alaric behind, I hastily mounted my spirit sword and flew straight toward the Mystic Spirit Sect. The entrance to the Mystic Spirit Sect was heavily guarded, barring all entry. Even I, the second princess, was not exempted. With no other choice, I steeled my expression and assumed my royal demeanor. Make way for your princess at once, or you shall face my wrath. Realizing this might be our final meeting, I unleashed the spiritual energy I'd been restraining, forcing the guards at the door to scatter. Princess, please don't, let her in. Lyriel's voice carried an extraordinary depth of inner power. The mighty guardian heaved open the massive gate. When Lyriel reappeared, she was transformed, yet her radiant smile remained as dazzling as ever. Sister, you've regained your ancient beauty at last. She took my hand and made me sit down. So you know about our ancient bond. It was your life-saving grace that allowed me to break free from spiritual form in our past life. Though I still departed before you, this lifetime, I'm determined to take your place in the cycle of rebirth. I want you to find happiness. Cousin, you don't need to do this. What I did before was just instinctive. I never meant for you to. I know you'd never ask this of me. Everything I do is by my own choice. Lyriel paused briefly before continuing. Little sister, do you resent my closeness with Alaric? Truth be told, I only approached him to learn whether your ancient memories had returned. I would never compete with you for anything. She handed me a carnelian spirit fruit and smiled as I placed it in my mouth. What about the mystic sex leader? How should we handle that? I swallowed the spirit fruit that melted in my mouth and voiced my doubt. Don't worry, little sister. My second sister possesses exceptional spiritual roots and talents. She's more than capable. The second sister, Lyriel's full-blooded younger sibling, was born to the same parents, more composed and level-headed than Lyriel. She carried herself with the icy elegance of a snow lotus. She's indeed an excellent choice. I poured her a cup of my homemade spirit fruit wine from my storage pouch and raised my glass. In that case, let this final toast serve as our farewell. Our glasses clinked with a crisp, resonant sound. Watching Lyriel doze off after just 2 drinks, a faint smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. In the fading twilight, I found myself standing alone at the gates of Elysium. The bottomless chasm seemed even wider than when I last saw it. Through 2 lifetimes, neither my royal parents nor my blood-related sister ever showed me genuine affection. I never knew the warmth of family bonds. If this is my fate, why fear the torment of rebirth? I channeled all my spiritual energy, only to find the surging power source in my dantian forcibly suppressed. What's happening, little sister? I knew you had ulterior motives coming to me. Fortunately, I took precautions before you could act. Lyriel's triumphant laughter echoed from behind. In a flash, she raised the agate spirit fruit clenched in her hand before my eyes. Only then did I notice the entire crimson fruit was shimmering with an ethereal blue glow. It had been steeped in quell water to suppress cultivation, a substance even late-stage Mahayana practitioners couldn't resist, but she drank the wine I tampered with too. Why is she unaffected? She tucked the spirit fruit into her pouch, her eyes twinkling with the same mischievous glint from our childhood. I knew you'd tampered with the wine, but I had the foresight to take an antidote first, cousin. This responsibility was always mine to bear, not yours. Lyriel shook her head. Having had the honor of being your cousin through 2 lifetimes, my wish is fulfilled. Now it's time I repay my debt. She bowed gracefully to me and whispered her blessing. Take care, little sister. With one last lingering glance, she leaped into the bottomless rift of Elysium. Cousin, Lyriel, come back. Powerless to use any spiritual energy, I could only watch helplessly as she charged forward like a moth to flame. Fearless and resolute, hearing my cry, Lyriel paused before the rift, resisting its pull to cast me one final glance and utter her last words. Little sister, may you find happiness in all your days to come. Her gentle smile and blessing drifted into my ears, and my tears fell instantly. I watched helplessly as she relaxed her body, dissolving into countless specks of ethereal light the moment she was drawn into the rift, scattering into Elysium. Within moments, the rift to Elysium gradually shrank until it sealed completely, then vanished without a trace. And oh, I lunged forward desperately, but even with my restored spiritual power, I couldn't so much as graze the fading afterimage of Elysium. A year later, I became betrothed to Alaric, the divine fox prince. A century thereafter, he attained the supreme 9-tailed form and ascended as the celestial fox sovereign. On the eve of our wedding, Alaric produced a snow-white bunny from an exquisite bamboo basket. The fluffy little creature had its back to me, wriggling restlessly in his palms with undulating movements. A sharp hiss escaped Alaric's lips as he winced in pain. Turned out the bunny had sunk its tiny teeth into his finger. He set the bunny down, watching it scamper about with twitching whiskers. That's when I noticed the faint lavender mark on its left ear. My eyes welled up instantly, staring blankly without daring to blink. Is this real? Alaric pulled me into his embrace and sighed. Don't cry. It breaks my heart to see you in tears. That's right, this is Lyriel. A century ago, I went through hell to enter Elysium and retrieve a fragment of Lyriel's soul. After nurturing it carefully, I transferred it into this rabbit's body, a rebirth of sorts. After all that struggle, the last thing I wanted was to see you cry. Seeing my reluctance to look away, he gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. Go give her a hug, but be careful, she's got quite the temper. Every time I touch her, she bites me. He gave me this pitiful look and shoved his finger with the red mark right in my face, begging for sympathy. His expression cracked me up, and I couldn't help rolling my eyes at him. That's it. The mark will fade before you can blink twice. Right, that red mark has faded to just a faint pink now. You're the supreme 9-tailed fox now. No need to be so petty. As I crouched to pick up the darting bunny, Alaric's warning barely left his lips when it already nuzzled against me. Sniffing eagerly before rubbing its face against my hand, Alaric poked the bunny's fluffy head with his index finger, shaking his head in mild exasperation. As expected, the bond between sisters runs deep. I suppose I'm just an outsider here. The bunny bared its teeth, ready to chomp on Alaric's finger, making him jerk his hand back in alarm while I burst into uncontrollable laughter. Lyra. This bunny is my carefully chosen wedding gift for you. Are you happy with it? So he'd known about my melancholy all along. That's why he went through such lengths to recover my cousin's lost spirit. It must have been incredibly difficult to achieve. How did you manage it? Cradling the bunny, I gazed at him with eyes brimming with tenderness. This is my beloved, my celestial partner. Finding even a fragment of her soul was pure serendipity. A century ago, I chanced upon a soul-nurturing jade and resolved to try my luck when Elysium reappeared. To my astonishment, during my first venture there, I discovered scattered remnants of her soul lingering in a spirit chalice. Over decades, I painstakingly gathered every fragment near the chalice, nurturing them within the jade until their restoration was complete just recently. 3 days ago, I finally transferred them into this little rabbit. Lyra, you still haven't answered me. Does this wedding gift I prepared bring you joy? Stroking the rabbit in my arms, I gazed at him with eyes curved like crescent moons, overjoyed. Of course I'm delighted. My cousin returned just before my wedding. Her blessing for me has now come true. With her by my side, my happiness will only grow. A millennium later, Lyriel, who had mastered human transformation, ascended as a celestial feather immortal. When my 2 millennia pact with the heavenly Tao was fulfilled, I finally became the supreme celestial emperor, jointly governing the cultivation realm with the heavenly Tao. My immortal consort, the nine-tailed divine fox Alaric, also attained the divine rank of Fox Emperor. Through the endless passage of sun and moon, our happiness stretches equally eternal. The end. Next story. In the apocalyptic end times, the floodwaters rose to the sky, yet I was kicked off the rescue inflatable boat by my mother-in-law. My husband and his pregnant mistress were laughing beside me. When I opened my eyes again, it was 30 days before the torrential rain hit. I also acquired a special ability. 1. Cough. Cough. When I suddenly opened my eyes in the darkness, my body involuntarily curled up, I coughed violently, and the smell of rust filled my entire nasal cavity and chest. Where am I? Wasn't I pushed off the boat? Huff, huff. The loud snoring woke up my rationality. It seems that I didn't drown. This place seems to be my home. Sleeping beside me is my stupid pig of a husband, whose sleep quality is so good that he wouldn't even bat an eye if struck by lightning. How could I be in this home that has already been washed away by the flood? I hurriedly searched for my phone. The time on it read 00:30, June 29th, 2023, 35 days before my death, 30 days before the torrential rain hit. 2. I couldn't fall asleep after waking up. I confirmed that all that horror wasn't a dream, but that I had been reborn. Because I found that I had 2 special abilities. One was an extremely strong memory. I clearly remembered all the things from June 28th to August 3rd in my previous life, even the details that I had only glanced at. The second was a personal space of 1 cubic meter. For a moment, I thought I was going to be the protagonist of this world, but soon, I realized that I couldn't do it. I'm just an ordinary person who has lived for more than 20 years. Tell the government the news of the flood apocalypse. Who would believe me? Build a shelter that can accommodate everyone in the world. How could I possibly do that? I can only make full use of my abilities to live until the day when the torrential rain stops and the flood subsides, and within my ability, I will try my best to help others survive. During the intervals of my thinking, there were several moments when I thought about strangling the heartless and adulterous man beside me, but in the end, I didn't do it. If I am to be the spark of humanity, I hope I'm not evil, but I also won't have the slightest bit of pity for this man. I plan to make him experience all the despair of his previous life, and I will witness with my own eyes what kind of fate awaits him after he abandons me. 3. I pretended to wake up at 7 in the morning as usual, and then took the subway to work. Naturally, I wasn't going to work honestly, however. In order to avoid arousing suspicion in that man at home and his mother, I couldn't let the company spread the news of my absence from work back to them. I could only resign and then pretend to have found a better job. In my previous life, the company I worked for also did all kinds of despicable things. After the government issued a red rainstorm warning, requiring enterprises and institutions not to go to work unless necessary and to choose to work from home, that son of a bitch of a boss insisted on forcing everyone to come to the company. Several of my colleagues were thus trapped in the flooded subway station and didn't even survive the 3rd day of the torrential rain. When the floodwaters washed their bodies out of the subway station, they were already pale and swollen, and their faces couldn't be recognized at all. Thinking of this, after I submitted my resignation, I specifically greeted a few colleagues who were closer to me. When the torrential rain arrives, it will depend on them to inform everyone to save those lives, for all the conditions for a good survival are safety and supplies, and both safety and supplies require a lot of money. Obviously, as an ordinary orphan who has no inheritance from my parents and has been working hard for 4 years but is still a bottom-level employee in an ordinary company, I don't have much savings. As for my wealthy husband, who I thought was gentle and considerate in the past but is actually a mama's boy and a slacker, he thought that after giving a large sum of money to my uncle's family, I would be his highly educated personal nanny, so naturally he wouldn't give me much money to spend. There is only one way to get money quickly: the lottery. I spent a whole day running around 80% of the lottery stations in the city and bought thousands of lottery tickets for the draws in the next 2 days. They would all win prizes, but the prizes were not large, ranging from a few hundred to a few thousand yuan, and none of them exceeded 10,000 yuan. Although winning a big prize is more efficient, if I not only buy a large number of first and second prizes, but even just one more first prize, it may lead to a different result for this period's lottery draw, and I can't afford to take that risk. As for small prizes, I also try to control each single ticket to not exceed 10,000 yuan, so that I can claim the prize directly at the lottery station. Otherwise, once I go to the prize claim center with multiple winning lottery tickets of the same period to claim the prizes, it will surely arouse suspicion. 5. After having the money, I began to look for a shelter for myself. This torrential rain and flood covered the whole world, and fleeing from Beijing wouldn't save me from the disaster. Staying in Beijing is not only more convenient for preparation, but also likely to enjoy better rescue conditions. In my previous life, we moved into the penthouse on the top floor that my husband rented for his mistress in the same community as our home. We withstood the first wave of floods, however, we didn't expect that each wave was stronger than the last. The building, which was claimed to be able to withstand a magnitude 7 earthquake, actually rose from the ground and then collapsed. I deeply understand that the steel and iron structures that humans are proud of can't withstand the howling of nature at all, so I need a shelter that is high enough and safe enough. I carefully recalled the memories of those 36 days and finally found a suitable place in the background sound of a broadcast that I hadn't paid attention to at all. Please transfer out of the city in a timely manner, citizens. Currently, the east and southeast directions are passable. Please note that do not choose the northeast direction. The flood in this direction has spread to the foot of Longyan Mountain in the northeast. That's right, Longyan Mountain. I lived in a village at the foot of Longyan Mountain when I was a child. I heard that there is a cave on the top of the mountain. It is said that in the early years, when the older generations encountered floods, they would take shelter there, strangely enough. The area below the middle of Longyan Mountain is covered with dense trees, but the upper third near the top only has some grass, and the very top is a bare rock layer. Perhaps it is precisely because of the strange geological features of Longyan Mountain that it has withstood the disasters time and time again in the past. Later, when I was a child, many people knew about the cave on Longyan Mountain. At that time, some people from inside and outside the village who went up the mountain to hunt wild game would stay there if they couldn't make it down the mountain in time, but now, the village has been deserted, and hunting wild game has long been prohibited. I guess no one has been to the mountain for many years. 6. After inspecting the situation of the cave on the top of Longyan Mountain, I determined my next plan. The first thing, without revealing myself, try my best to warn the whole society of the disaster. The second thing, build a shelter for myself on the top of Longyan Mountain and strive to hold out until the disaster passes. The third thing, purchase enough survival supplies and learn how to swim and row a boat before the torrential rain arrives. Among these three things, the warning is the simplest and the most difficult. I registered accounts on Weibo, Zhihu, and Douyin respectively, mainly focusing on predicting the future. On Weibo, 1 to 2 days in advance, I pretended to be a comprehensive master of Zhoi, tarot, and stargazing, and revealed a lot of gossip about celebrities, quickly attracting a large number of fans and passers-by. After attracting enough attention, amidst everyone's eager anticipation, I left a divination result. At the end of July, the hell of the water palace will arrive. For the next 3 days, no matter how everyone asked, I didn't speak again. Early in the morning on the fourth day, I logged in again and posted a new Weibo. Master Emily's divination of the secrets of heaven has been backlashed, and my life is coming to an end. This account will be permanently sealed. On Zhihu, I anonymously left a large number of accurate predictions, which made countless Zhihu users wonder why there were so many accurate anonymous answers recently. Then, on the eve of the official announcement that the anonymous system would be abolished, I manually cancelled the anonymity myself and pinned a new prediction on my homepage. At the beginning of August, Beijing will be flooded by floods, and the ancient capital will no longer exist. When everyone began to wonder whether the accounts that had made accurate predictions before would choose to cancel their anonymity, they suddenly realized that all these predictions actually came from the same person. On Douyin, I set up a live broadcast room pretending to invite the pen fairy. The camera didn't film people, but only the pen I was holding. After the pen fairy wrote out the numbers of the first prize in the current lottery draw 30 seconds in advance for 3 consecutive lottery draws, and even the order of the balls drawn was exactly the same, everyone began to believe that the pen fairy really existed in the world. I pretended to have tasted the benefits and claimed that I was going to do something big. I could connect with others on Douyin and ask the pen fairy about everyone's lifespan for them, undoubtedly. The dates of death I wrote were all at the beginning of August. After testing 7 people who connected with me one after another, my account was blocked, but the recording of the live broadcast spread like wildfire. Soon, the majority of netizens connected the 3 things: the hell of the water palace at the end of July, the ancient capital being flooded at the beginning of August, the pen fairy testing 7 people in a row and all of them dying in August together. The news that the end of the world caused by the flood was coming was almost known to everyone. 7. The latter 2 things sound difficult, but they are also simple. I pretended that my new job required a 10-day business trip, fooled my husband and mother-in-law who didn't care about me in the first place, and then began the days of constantly traveling back and forth between the city and Longyan Mountain, the 2 of them, who had no idea that a great disaster was approaching. We're still fully focused on the child that was about to be born in my husband's mistress's belly at this time. They had already paid someone to check, and it was a boy. They couldn't wait to kick me away and not let me get in their way as soon as possible, seeing me as a married wife who hadn't given birth to a child in 4 years. I found a building materials company with a very good reputation and claimed that I wanted to build a vacation homestay at the foot of Longyan Mountain, highlighting the gimmick of environmental protection and renewability. So, in addition to the regular building materials, I also needed the raw materials and blueprints for 2 sets of foldable aluminum alloy sunrooms, as well as 5 sets of solar power supply equipment, 5 sets of equipment that could support kinetic energy power generation, and 5 sets of water filtration equipment. I especially emphasized that the specifications of the equipment could be small, but the quality must be excellent. In addition, I purchased a large amount of food and daily necessities from different supermarkets and asked the supermarket staff to help me put them in the trunk of my car. After they finished loading the car, I would transfer them into my personal space and then go to the next supermarket to buy more. After being busy for 10 days like this, I finally moved all the things into the cave on Longyan Mountain, while heaving a sigh of relief. I had to go back to that disgusting home and pretend to have returned from a business trip, and when I said that I was about to start my next business trip, I endured a round of sarcasm from my husband and mother-in-law, but I clearly saw a trace of joy in their disgusted expressions. Yes, when I'm not at home, they can have open contacts with that mistress. 8. On July 26th, there were less than 3 days left until the torrential rain in my previous life. I can't say that I'm completely satisfied with this temporary shelter on the top of Longyan Mountain, but I've already done the best I can for now. At least, there's no problem in holding out for 2 months during the flood disaster. Whether it's a rare natural disaster or the 6th mass extinction of species, the truth will surely be revealed in 2 months. If the flood still doesn't subside by then and the government doesn't have any countermeasures, then it's probably very difficult for humanity to survive either. After putting the customized folding sailboat, waterproof engine, floating wood, oxygen cylinders, folding mountain bikes, mountaineering shoes, headlamps, trekking poles, etc., into my personal space, the space was full. I barely stuffed in a little more food and drink supplies, and then headed back to the city. I booked a high-end hotel for 2 nights. During the day, I hired a private coach to teach me how to swim, and at night, I ordered a spa to relax. Thanks to my somewhat useful brain and the physical strength I've exercised by going up and down the mountain these days, although my swimming posture isn't very good, I can finally paddle in the water in the breaststroke position for 20 or 30 minutes and hold my breath for about 2 minutes. I can't compare with a swimming expert, but for an ordinary person like me who couldn't swim at all before, this is already very difficult. 9. On the evening of July 28th, I pretended to return from a business trip and went back to that stinky home. I don't know if the government also paid attention to my predictions, but I found a lot of details that were different from my previous life. The community bulletin board in the neighborhood posted the self-help methods for natural disasters, especially emphasizing how to save oneself in a flood, and also posted a topographic map of the surrounding area of the community. There were a large number of goods piled up in the bicycle shed. I secretly checked at night and found that they were life buoys and life jackets that hadn't been inflated yet. Most importantly, there were self-help method leaflets inserted on the doorknob of my home, which were like small advertisements. This can be considered as home propaganda, right? I heaved a sigh of relief. Judging from this, it seems that when the flood comes, everyone won't be as hasty as they were in my previous life. 10. In the early morning of July 29th, the torrential rain arrived as scheduled, and the high temperature of 40 degrees finally disappeared. Most people on the internet were overjoyed. They were happy because of the long-awaited rain after a drought and the drop in temperature during the hot summer. I couldn't help but sigh. It seems that the long period of scorching sun has made them forget the fear they felt when they saw my predictions. They didn't take the red rainstorm warning seriously at all. After all, the last time it happened was 11 years ago, and the disasters and sufferings had long been erased in the long river of memory. Moreover, the experts said that the impact of the rainstorm weather brought by this typhoon would only last for 6 to 8 hours, and the rainstorm would turn into light rain the next morning, but it would bring a week-long cool weather as a result. And now, ignoring the predictions of the disaster and simply believing in the words of the experts in the weather forecast, they will desperately long for the scorching sun to return every day in the future. 11. In the early morning of August 1st, the torrential rain had been falling for a full 3 days and 3 nights. In the past 72 hours, the precipitation in Beijing had reached 600 millimeters. This was almost the annual precipitation in Beijing before, a few hours ago. Under the leadership of my mother-in-law, the three of us moved into the woman's room on the top floor. My mother-in-law carried a box of valuables, and that disgraceful man held 3 life jackets, and I, on my back, carried 3 oxygen cylinders. In my left hand, I held a 29-inch suitcase filled with food, and in my right hand, I grabbed the only inflatable rubber boat at home. If someone who didn't know saw me, they would think I was the reincarnation of the Hulk, obviously. The two of them had already been prepared to mock me for being useless. However, they didn't expect that I could carry all the luggage in one go with just a slight gasp for breath. Their faces turned a reddish color as if they were holding in their excrement. Why didn't I realize in my previous life that they didn't simply dislike me for not being able to have children? Instead, they were evil by nature. Yes, if they weren't evil by nature, how could they have bought a docile and easy-to-control daughter-in-law from others? 12. During the day on August 1st, the red rainstorm warning was upgraded to a red flood warning. In several districts with slightly lower terrain in the capital city, the streets had already turned into riverbeds of the flood. Bodies occasionally floated on the turbulent water tides, all of them naked. The current had carried away their clothes, bringing them back to the state they were in when they first came into the world. However, the number of casualties was obviously fewer than in the previous life. Most of the floating bodies were pitiful people who insisted on going out despite dissuasion, and a few were soldiers and workers engaged in rescue and disaster relief. As for the incident of more than 100 people being trapped and dying due to waterlogging in the subway station, it didn't happen at all. After issuing the red rainstorm warning this time, the government didn't wait for various enterprises and institutions to respond on their own. Instead, it showed an uncharacteristic toughness and directly issued the order to the property management companies of each office location, not allowing any unit that hadn't obtained approval to go to work without permission. Once discovered, a fine notice would be directly sent to the property management company, and in serious cases, the business license might even be revoked. In order to keep their jobs, the property management companies took measures such as locking the doors and cutting off the power to reduce the situation of companies in the buildings going to work. The effect was very remarkable. At the same time, the government shut down most of the subway stations and lines. For the lines that were still in operation, passengers needed to show proof that they were relevant workers ensuring the basic operation of the city before they could take the subway. 13. On the morning of August 2nd, the torrential rain was still falling. I was extremely nervous. In 24 hours, the building I was in was going to collapse, and I would, as always, be kicked into the water by them. The difference was that I would summon the floating wood from my space, and then inflate the life jacket that I had already worn under my coat and float beside them. I would use my clumsy swimming skills to maintain my balance, fasten the oxygen cylinder tightly in the bottle holder around my waist, and let the current push me forward, until I saw the three of them, who couldn't row a boat, being swallowed up by the turbulent current. Then, I just needed a place to stand on. Maybe it would be a tree by the roadside, or the roof of a private car that occasionally emerged from the water, or a building. I would launch my folding sailboat there and then head northeast all the way to my shelter, the home that I truly put my heart and soul into. But I didn't expect that at noon, a huge difference from my previous life occurred. In the homeowners group of the community issued a notice written in red characters. 14. Notice. In accordance with the instructions of the superior competent department, there is a major safety hazard in this community. Please all residents wear warm clothes and gather in front of each building before 14:00. The municipal government will organize vehicles and boats to transfer you to the resettlement site. Note that this is an emergency personnel transfer, and resources are limited. Please do not carry large pieces of luggage. 15. If you want to go, you go. I'm pregnant. How can my baby withstand the bumps? The government is asking us to transfer. There's a major safety hazard. We have to listen to the government. If you want to listen, you listen. What safety hazard could there be? At worst, the first floor will be flooded. We're on the top floor. What could go wrong? This high-end community has good drainage and waterproofing. Look, it hasn't leaked at all even after 3 days of rain. You don't understand. 25 years ago, I was in Wuhan, and that building couldn't withstand the water at all. You also know that it was 25 years ago. This is the capital city. Don't compare it with other places. My mother-in-law and the mistress had a fierce argument. It's really rare. She actually dared to be harsh on the biological mother of her precious grandson. However, I didn't expect that she had some sense of crisis and knew that it was really unsafe in the building. I still remember that when the building collapsed in my previous life, she was indeed the most clear-headed. She immediately told us to hold the bedding tightly against the wall. And that's how we were able to row a boat in the water later. I ignored their argument and put on my clothes on my own. Then I tied the cuffs and bottoms of my pants tightly with plastic wrap. When the overwhelming flood swept into the building and the huge steel structures crashed into the water, they would all learn to shut up. No, what they would learn wasn't to shut up, but to scream as the building trembled, then cough violently after being choked by the water, and then have their throats scratched by the sand and mud, and finally be rendered speechless by the huge waves. When I pushed the door open and went out, I had already heard the result of the argument. There was no doubt that my mother-in-law lost, because her precious son would always choose himself over his mother with a lower cultural level. 16. At 13:30, I stood downstairs. The accumulated water at this time had just risen above my ankles. It was hard for anyone to imagine that the seemingly gentle water level line now would turn into overwhelming waves in the next dozen or so hours. In the places I could see, not many people were waiting downstairs. Some people had clearly already come downstairs, but seeing that the water level was still shallow, they went back up. As the saying goes, good advice is hard to persuade those who are determined to die, and great compassion cannot save those who give up on themselves. The chance to survive was right in front of them, yet some people would still give it up on their own. Just as I was thinking about whether to post in the community group to persuade everyone, a man in military uniform suddenly walked up to me. 17. Are you Miss Emily? Miss Emily, right. I saw that he seemed to frown because of my hesitation. The shadow of my previous life made me naturally distrust others. A strange soldier who could call out my name even made me feel a bit panicked. As an ordinary person like me, how could I have attracted the attention of the authorities, unless they had discovered my secret? Don't be nervous, I'm John, the captain of the 17th team of the current Flood Control Emergency Command Center. I received an order from my superiors to invite Miss Emily to the command center for a meeting. I didn't want to go, but I had to. If the authorities had already discovered my secret, I had nowhere to run. 18. It was really unexpected that the location of the command center turned out to be on the top floor of a shopping mall. I had originally thought it would be in an underground air raid shelter. What surprised me even more was that the commander of the command center was actually a woman, and she looked to be only in her 30s. In front of her, countless display screens were showing the live situation of the disaster. But every once in a while, a display screen would turn a yellowish-brown color or go black. I stared carefully for a few minutes before realizing that it was because the drones had been knocked into the water by the waves or directly destroyed. In the hall of nature, everything was so fragile. People, trees, and buildings were all like ants to nature, with no difference at all. 19. The commander said her name was Audrey. She could spare 10 minutes to answer my questions, but after that, I had to work for her. What choice did I have? She could have forced me, but she was willing to answer my questions. What use am I to you? She was a bit surprised, obviously, in her expectation. My first question shouldn't have been this. I need your personal space. The load capacity of the helicopter is limited. With your space, the quantity of supplies we can transport each time will be greatly increased, especially. There are some supplies that must be kept away from water. How do you know? Miss Emily's actions haven't been hidden from us. You went to 5 supermarkets in a row to purchase supplies, but they couldn't even fill up a trunk. Anyone with discernment can see that there's something wrong. Okay, I'll do it. Aren't you going to ask what exactly to transport and where to transport it? No need. I'll find out eventually. There's a question I thought you would ask, but even if you didn't ask, I still want to tell you. I was also reborn, in my previous life. I endured for 60 days during the flood disaster, and then I was reborn a year ago. 20. In the more than 50 days that followed, I transferred among 4 aviation transport teams. The transportation was carried out day and night without stopping. The eyes of all the soldiers were bloodshot. As for me, I could still take short naps during the intervals of the flights. The supplies being transported were completely different from what I had imagined. They weren't firearms and ammunition that couldn't get wet or food and drinking water. Instead, they were floating island components that were compressed into 1 square meter areas and could be quickly assembled. These floating island components were quickly deployed in various areas with deeper water levels, forming temporary resettlement sites all over the country. After all, people will feel at ease once they have a place to land. 21. After all the temporary resettlement sites were properly arranged, I returned to the capital city. This time, I met 37 people, 3 of them were on site, and the rest participated via video. Audrey introduced me to them in a grand manner, then she explained everything to me. It turned out that I wasn't the only reborn person, everyone was reborn, and she was the one who was reborn the earliest among us and also the one who lived the longest in the previous life, without exception. All of us had all the clear memories from the moment of our death in the previous life back to the day of our rebirth, and a special ability. Mine was the personal space, Audrey's was eagle-eye vision, Violet's was the ability to heal, Joseph's was the ability to change gravity. Before the disaster arrived, All the reborn people shouldered the heaviest responsibilities and became the commanders or military advisors of the command centers in various places. Only then did I understand why I didn't receive any warnings for spreading rumors or false information at all when I was causing a stir on the internet and predicting the world disaster, and all kinds of man-made disasters in my memory either disappeared or became much smaller in scale. I asked Audrey why everyone had gathered together, but they hadn't contacted me before the flood disaster arrived. She said that all the reborn people had towering resentment and an endless desire to survive. For every day they died later after the flood, the day of their rebirth would move forward by 6 days. And the reborn person before me was reborn 100 days before the disaster arrived. They judged that it should be very difficult for anyone to be a combination of these two factors in the early days of the flood disaster. Who would have thought that a freak like me would appear? 22. August 29th was the last day in Audrey's memory. Among the 30 million population of the capital city, only 15 million remained, although we had already done our best. In the end, we only saved half of the people. If this was the situation in the capital city, there were probably even fewer people left in other places. Audrey blamed herself. She felt that she should have done better, but she really had already done her best. For a flood disaster on a global scale, even if the government had spoken out, without witnessing that scene, no one would have believed it. Before the flood arrived, she took the lead in building tens of thousands of resettlement sites across the country and developed quickly assembled floating islands together with scientific research personnel as a large number of temporary resettlement sites. She planned out the flood drainage routes across the country and evacuated the people along the routes in advance. She restored the time when each building collapsed and the causes of each major man-made disaster, and fully mobilized manpower for rescue. She wasn't a god. What else could she have done? I can't imagine what else could have been done to deal with an apocalypse in just 1 year. 22. On September 25th, the torrential rain finally stopped. Everyone couldn't believe it. Everyone thought that perhaps the world had become a cave of water curtains and there would never be daylight again. Someone sent me news about that family. The resource allocation was limited, in order to keep the precious son in the mistress's belly safe. My mother-in-law was reluctant to eat or drink and gave everything to the mistress. Unexpectedly, the baby was overfed, and in the end, due to limited conditions during childbirth, there was a difficult delivery and massive bleeding, resulting in the death of both the mother and the child. After losing her grandson, my mother-in-law became depressed and gradually stopped eating and drinking. The resettlement site sent many people to try to persuade her, but it was of no avail. In the end, she suddenly died in the middle of the night. After my mother-in-law died, no one took care of that man. Since he was unwilling to do it himself, he exchanged the gold that his mother-in-law had hidden for use after the flood with others for food, drink, and even women. As a result, someone was tempted by the money and robbed him. He refused to submit even at the risk of death and was stabbed twice. He was exposed to the rain all the time, and his wounds were severely infected. When he was found, he was barely breathing and died soon after, and those who robbed him of his gold knew that they wouldn't be tolerated in the resettlement site and fled. There hasn't been any new news about them yet. 22. On October 2nd, the flood disaster had basically subsided. Among the 30 million population of the capital city, only 8 million remained. Thank goodness, human civilization was still there. But Audrey was obviously not satisfied. She asked me, "Is this all we can do?" I told her, "Yes, because we are just human beings after all." 23. In the middle of May 2024, the capital city had already regained its vitality. Audrey said that in order to celebrate, she invited all the reborn people to gather together. She asked us if we wanted to take a big gamble. I agreed. 24. Cough, cough. My body involuntarily convulsed, and my hands tightly pressed against my neck. Who said that when you suffer great harm, you won't feel pain? What's wrong with her? Call the school doctor. Some noisy voices violently poured into my ears. I suddenly opened my eyes, and the bright sunlight made me dizzy. Sleeping beside me was my stupid pig of a husband, whose sleep quality was so good that he wouldn't even bat an eye if struck by lightning. Except, I grabbed the person beside me and asked eagerly, "What year is it now?" Yes, it was the year I graduated, the year I hadn't been sold to someone else as a wife. And it was 4.5 years before the torrential rain arrived. I won the gamble. 24. In the apocalyptic end times, the floodwaters rose to the sky. We tried our best but only saved a small number of people. At Audrey's initiative, we planned to take a big gamble. I slit my own throat with a knife. Before closing my eyes, I vaguely felt the spray of blood. When I opened my eyes again, it was 4.5 years before the torrential rain arrived. Except for my memories, I didn't acquire any other special abilities, but it didn't matter, because from now on, we would issue the red rainstorm warning.